Well, good afternoon. Bob Allen for Meet the Candidate, and we're in our Food Share studio, and today we're privileged to have Tim Flynn with us, and Tim is a candidate for mayor of the city of Oxnard. Tim, welcome to our studio.
Thank you very much, Bob.
What we like to do is let you get a chance to basically let our viewing audience know who Tim Flynn is. So, Tim, I know that you were born here in the community, weren't you?
Well, actually, I've spent all but about 2 years of my life, my early life, as far as being raised here in the community in Oxnard. I was born actually in Santa Barbara, California, in 1959, and my parents came to Ventura County, which is really for my dad the second time, because my family first came to the county in the 1920s. And so my parents came to Oxnard, initially lived in El Rio, and then they bought a home in Oxnard because my dad was able to get a job paying $4,000 a year when the school district, as a teacher, when the school districts paid $3,000 a year in Santa Barbara. So he was able to get a good job here. So that's how we ended up, actually, my family back in Ventura County and specifically Oxnard.
You know how lucky you are growing up in such a beautiful community with weather like we have here.
Well, it's funny, as a kid, certainly I was aware of the fact that the weather was nice, but I think when you stress, the beautiful community, certainly I have a lot of nostalgia for my youth and for what I experienced as a kid here growing up in Oxnard, and the quality of life was outstanding. I mean, neighborhoods were much newer, of course, than they are today. So the housing tract that my parents bought was probably from the 1950s, which is now somewhere in the 60, 65 years old. So the houses were, when I grew up as a kid, most of the homes were relatively brand new, and there was a thriving downtown. The downtown in Oxnard was really the envy of all other cities throughout the county. And it was a very, very healthy upbringing and a very healthy community. I remember one of the great pastimes is walking from my parents' home, which is on the north end, across a field and past the tennis court and going to the Oxnard High School swimming pool where we got to swim for the summertime for 25 cents.
Wow.
Yeah, so great fun.
Did you go to Oxnard High School?
I did not go to Oxnard High School. I went to Santa Clara High School.
Okay.
And I also went to Santa Clara Elementary. So I actually live right around the corner from there now, so I feel certainly at home. And it was a great education, not only at Santa Clara Elementary, but Santa Clara High School had an enormous impact on my life. And the teachers I had at Santa Clara, to this day, I think about most of them, if not many of them, on a daily basis.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, after high school, where did you go to college?
Well, I was somewhat of a late bloomer. I didn't necessarily have the grades to go straight from high school straight to a four-year university. So I went to Ventura Junior College, which was great for me because it allowed me to make that transition from high school to college. And then after 2 years at Ventura College, I went to UC Santa Barbara. And actually, I spent the first year of my life at UC Santa Barbara because my parents were students at UC Santa Barbara. And so they lived in Isla Vista, so I spent the first year of my life in Isla Vista. So I went back to Isla Vista, actually initially the dorms on campus, and then I lived the last year in Isla Vista. So I graduated from UC Santa Barbara in 1981, and I studied political science.
Okay, and you are now a teacher at Pacifica High School. How did you transfer from political science into teaching?
Well, I've taught at Oxnard College for the last 12 years. Actually, the last 6 months I haven't taught there because they've had drastic cuts, especially part-time faculty. So I actually taught political science at Oxnard College for 11 years. And as a high school teacher, I've been a social science teacher, so I've taught every subject you can think of under the sun. When you're credentialed to teach social science, you have to teach about 8 or 9 different subjects, or you have to be ready to teach 8 or 9 different subjects. And I've also been very fortunate is that my last year of high school, I picked up German as a foreign language, and then eventually studied in Germany. I got a scholarship from the Rotary Club, and from that, I've been able actually to be a German teacher and a social science teacher. So I've been able to be somewhat of a jack of all trades.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, I know that you've been married, have a wonderful family. Where did you meet? Is your wife from?
My wife's from the city of Ventura. We met in the city of Ventura, and we lived for a brief amount of time in Ventura, and eventually were able to find a house on F Street, which is right down the street from where I went to school at Santa Clara, and we were very much attracted by the charm and the historic district, the Henry T. Oxnard Historic District. It wasn't the historic district then, but it is now. Yes. And opportunity came up. It was the right time, and in 1998 we found a great home on F Street, and we moved there. And at the time, we had just had our second child, and then eventually we had an additional child for a total of 3 children. And so my wife and 3 girls, we have lived in Oxnard at this current residence, I think, for like 13 years.
Now, growing up, I know that your dad, besides being a teacher, got very heavily involved in the political scene in the county. That had to have a little effect on you as you started looking at getting into politics. So how is it that your dad got into it, and then how did you decide to go into the political arena?
Well, my dad and my mom, I remember from a very early age, were very active in politics. And it was a time in the 1960s that many people were very active in politics. And of course, the nation was very much divided on not just the Vietnam War, but a lot of social change in society. And my parents were individuals who were very, very family oriented on the one hand, yet on the other hand, they believed that there were things going on in the country that were not consistent with the dreams of the founding fathers, and specifically racial integration. It was one, and so they were very much at the forefront of that. There was a proposition early in the 1960s that actually would have allowed residents to discriminate on who could live in a neighborhood, and that actually passed in the state of California, and it was eventually overturned by the state Supreme Court. They initially got involved in that. They felt very passionate about that. When I was a baby living at UCSB, they actually cooked. One of the jobs they had is they cooked in a multiracial dormitory, because a lot of time, not dormitory, but fraternity, and a lot of times fraternities in Greek life, they too could be very segregated, and they taught they worked at a fraternity that was a multiracial one. So I think probably from that experience and their upbringing, they were both raised Catholic. They very much had a commitment to what they saw as social justice in the context of being accepting of people and embracing what they felt was the American dream.
So that was a great upbringing, for a young man like you. Now you have your own family, and what was your first step where you decided that you would like to pursue a little bit of the political career?
Well, this is a little bit ironic. I remember, and this is kind of funny, my parents would support various candidates, and we found my brothers and sisters, and I, being the oldest, I think sometimes I was the one who, they would have these fundraisers and events at their home, and I would somehow find at a very early age, I would get one of the signs of the opponents of who they were sponsoring. So when as a guest would arrive, my brothers and sisters, I'd line them all up, and we'd have the sign of whoever the opponent was of the fundraiser that they were having. And believe it or not, those are the first memories I have of political life. But we spent a lot of time in campaign headquarters of various presidential candidates, and when I say that, I mean locally. And again, my parents were very, very active. Outside of their work and the family, politics was their passion, and the people they associated with, politics was an absolute passion. And so when you're raised in an environment like that, it's no different than being raised in, maybe your parents own a small town store, and the bottom line is kids get recruited to work in the store. So in the context of politics, we had to end up doing literature drops at households, sometimes even knocking on doors with my dad. the enticement was always, okay, if you guys get this work done, we're going to buy you a hamburger, French fries, and a milkshake. And I don't know about you, but I was always hungry as a kid, and so a milkshake, French fries, and a hamburger was an excellent enticement. Yeah. So that's how I kind of remember the original, really getting involved.
Yeah. And I think if I remember, the first you had run for city council, and was that the first time that you became a candidate?
No, I actually ran for the College Board of Trustees in 1990. Wow. So I sought to represent the 5th Community College District, which is somewhat aligned with the 5th Supervisorial District, which encompassed most of Oxnard and Port Hueneme. Unfortunately, and I was 30 at the time, I was not successful. I missed it by a very narrow margin. But that first experience had an enormous impact on me. I liked the experience. It was a good experience. Certainly I didn't like losing, and it probably took me a time to get over losing, but I eventually came around after starting a family and finishing my education and getting more established in my job, into thinking that I too wanted to make a difference in the community, and so eventually I decided in 2004 to run for the city council. So, and fortunately, that second attempt I was lucky, and I was able to win, and I served 4 years on the council, and that was a great experience.
And now you are an active member of the city council, but you elected to run for mayor.
I did. In 2008, 4 years after being on the city council, I decided to run for mayor. It was not an easy decision, certainly because I consider the mayor a friend of mine, but I had different ideas and how to take the city in a different direction. And at the time, traffic was the kind of focus, and about Oxnard, the problem of traffic and how best do you support business and support, growth and healthy growth, economic growth in a community on the one hand, and how do you maintain quality of life, for the residents on the other. And as I walked door to door and I interacted with people, more and more people complained to me about traffic, and people were very frustrated that they saw the disappearance of agricultural fields. And yet, despite what I feel is a very strong majority of people who were opposed to the loss of agricultural land and the congestion on the roads, I felt that the city council at that time was not listening to the public, and so I launched my candidacy for mayor, largely predicated on those two issues. But at the time, I was also fighting for what I felt to be more openness in government. And in my first term, it was one could say, use the word, it was somewhat tumultuous. And even to the extent where I had to sue the government to actually get documents that were being not given to me when I had requested them. So a lot of what I did in 2008 was based on the fact that I was looking at what I saw to be a system and a culture in government in Oxnard that was very much a part of the legacy of the city. It was probably the old way of doing business. It was the old mentality of if there's open space, develop it, because that's progress. And so I kind of approached things in a different way, and wanted progress, and still do want progress. Wanted to do good things for businesses. Wanted to grow as a community, but also maybe being a little bit more focused on quality of life and preserving those precious resources that we have in our community.
And if you could really, if some words, explain to our viewers and everybody who's going to be listening to this, we're at a point now that there are 3 city council people who have chosen to run for the office of mayor, certainly with different, outlooks in what they do. What could you share with our viewers that's your major desire that you would like to accomplish if you are elected mayor?
Well, the first thing I like to say is that the opponents, or the people that are seeking mayor, 2 of which are my colleagues on the city council, the other is a retired school teacher. They are very passionate people. They have ideas that they feel are most important to offer the community. And I really like to stress that when one's running for a political office, it's really about a combination of ideas, and it's about policy, and it's about priorities. And that really is the main focus, or should be the main focus. That sometimes isn't always the main focus. So I'd like to say, they too are candidates or people that believe very strongly in Oxnard and the future of Oxnard. So in no way would I ever want to take that away from them. I'm, I think, different from my opponents, because I believe that although they might embrace a commitment to fiscal responsibility and fiscal accountability, we've had a situation in the Oxnard where we've paid our city manager more than the President of the United States. We're paying the acting city manager more than the Vice President of the United States. And a lot of times I'm at the opposite end of the spectrum. That vote on that salary, the salary for the city manager, the salary for the assistant city manager, who's now acting city manager, I was the only candidate to oppose that. And it wasn't that I thought necessarily that individuals that are in very important positions don't deserve to be adequately compensated. It was more of a question of saying, look, this is just totally outrageous. How can you pay somebody, the equivalent of the President of the United States or the Vice President, and they're running a small town government of 225,000. So that's maybe to start about how I'm different, I think, from, and how I set myself aside from my opponents. But I'm really, my focus and the focus of my campaign is based on ideas, and I want to implement those ideas. Number one, unemployment in the city of Oxnard is higher on average than not only the rest of the cities in Ventura County, but the rest of the nation, and even Ventura County, the state of California. So I have an idea about bringing jobs to the community in areas like high tech, biotech, and medical research. And I believe that in order to attract those companies, there are a lot of other amenities that companies were looking for to relocate to a community. So one of the ideas that I've long embraced that I want to really move forward on is forming an enterprise zone in the city of Oxnard, which would offer those companies tax incentives to relocate here. I've also been pressed the idea of engaging the Navy in a partnership. The Department of Defense has to cut out literally billions of dollars over the next 10 years in their budgets, and they're going to be looking for ways to save money, which I think is smart. And I think one of the best ways they can do that is with public-private partnerships. So we have 800,000 people in the county of Ventura. We do not have one commercial airline that flies into the county. So I would like to see Point Mugu as a new regional airport. That was something I think would be very appealing to companies. And also, a lot of times companies will not locate to a community unless they're assured that the schools in that community are the very, very best. Certainly high tech, biotech, et cetera, in itself, comes from a very highly educated group of people. And so I've floated the idea that as mayor, kind of stepping into a partnership with local schools on forming ideas about new magnet schools that would attract people from all over the city and all ethnic groups, all racial groups, et cetera, that would go to these magnet schools and offer them new possibilities, directing them in the area of these jobs, and also on a higher level, teaming up with Cal State Channel Islands, with the Martin V. Smith business program, with the Hank Lacayo Job Center. All those programs that are offered here locally, putting together an alliance between local education, the Cal State University, and these new biotech and high tech and medical research companies that we're looking to attract. So my campaign's predicated on jobs and prosperity for the community. I also have an idea about a 10-year redevelopment plan for the city. As you might know, redevelopment agencies have been eliminated across the state of California, but Oxnard has many blighted commercial, industrial, and residential areas that literally, quite frankly, need to be rebuilt. So there's a lot of people in construction, a lot of people in manufacturing, other areas. They need to be put back to work, and the basis of my campaign really is predicated on getting people back to work in Oxnard.
Oh, wonderful. I mean, I think that, I could not, want more for my own city. Okay?
Absolutely.
So I appreciate your passion towards that. How could our viewers get in touch with you if they'd like to be part of your campaign? Okay. Website, phone number.
Okay. Well, my telephone number is 805-340-1922. That's my cell phone. My website is flynnformayor.com. and a person can either call me directly, that's my cell phone at 340-1922. They can sign up to volunteer on my website, or they can come by and visit me at 211 North F Street, and we can have a chat, or they can call me on the phone, and I'll go to their home. So I'm approachable.
That's an opening that not too many people could turn down. So
don't tell my wife I said that.
I won't say that. But Tim, I want to thank you so much.
Thank you
for joining us.
Thank you.
And I can't wish you anything but the best of luck in your endeavors.
Thank you very much, Bob. Thank you.